Hey guys, Trip here, and there's a new 40k RPG coming out. Our cup runneth over with 40k games lately, and I'm all for it. I mean, just a few years ago, the idea of an RPG set in the far future seemed like a pipe dream. The game is called Dark Heresy, and just like Rogue Trader before it, it's being developed by Owlcat Studios. The game is based on a tabletop RPG of the same name, where you play as an inquisitorial acolyte investigating threats across the galaxy. Inquisitors are, effectively, the highest authority in the Imperium. Some might say it's the High Lords of Terra, or Guilliman, or even the Emperor himself rotting on his golden throne. But in terms of immediate, actionable authority across the entire Imperium, no one is more powerful than the Inquisition. You're effectively playing as one of the absolute rulers of humanity. So let's take a look at the trailer and see what we can uncover. I also have some brand new info on the game, so stay tuned.
The Imperium is torn asunder. In this darkest hour, we are besieged on all fronts. By enemies from within. By enemies from without. By enemies from beyond. Still, no matter the cost, we must persevere. Every blade must be turned to our defense. Every soul, every dark secret. For if we fail, all will fall into the damnation of eternal night.
Hell yes. So, first off, a lot to unpack here. I guess the first thing I noticed is that this trailer follows almost the exact same format as the trailer that came out for Rogue Trader. So knowing what we know about Owlcat Games and how they do things, there's actually quite a bit we can piece together just from looking at this trailer. The guy who's talking, my understanding is, just like in the last game, the person who was talking was your mentor figure, was the rogue trader who came before you. This character is some sort of inquisitorial lord. I believe he has a name within the lore, but I'm not super well versed in the inquisitorial side of things, so the name isn't something immediately familiar to me. I think I heard it once, but it didn't ring any bells. But yes, important character, mentor figure, explaining the basics of the role you're going to play, what you're aspiring to do, and showing us some of the enemies we're going to see along the way, and some of the companions as well. So, there's actually quite a bit of information about this game already out. Not a ton, but more than you might expect from a game that just announced, I want to say yesterday. There was an interview that happened just this morning between two members of Owlcat and I want to say two different content creators. And it was a live stream where they actually talked quite a bit about the game. And they revealed stuff that, I wasn't expecting them to be so open about so early. One of the first things that really stood out here is that they immediately, the developers themselves, compared the game to Knights of the Old Republic. And if you've been following the streams lately, you know that we've been playing those games lately and very much enjoying those games lately. And it's kind of the gold standard, in my opinion, for a game of that age at least, when it comes to a team-based, epic role-playing game story. And speaking of BioWare actually has a habit of taking inspiration from Warhammer 40k in terms of its RPGs and kind of the roles you play, the levels of authority you have. Best example, if you are familiar with Mass Effect, you already know what an Inquisitor is. It's a Spectre. If you're new to the 41st millennium, an Inquisitor is literally a Spectre. Somebody who is above the law, who is entrusted because they're completely incorruptible to go where nobody else can, do what nobody else can do, investigate the most wide-spanning conspiracies across the galaxy, stop threats that could destroy all of reality before regular people even know about them. And just like Spectres, Inquisitors are known for being incredibly callous, looking at the big picture of things, and not being afraid at all to, let's say, firebomb an entire planet, cleanse it in nuclear fire, exterminatus, if you're unaware. They have the ability to, basically at will, order the complete scouring of life from a planet. They don't play around. Inquisitors aren't the kind of interrogators, investigators that rely necessarily on tact and subtlety, though that's definitely a component of what they do. More often than not, Inquisitors are known for shooting first and torturing questions out of you later. And that definitely fits the vibe of Warhammer 40k. So, some basic info on the game that you might want to know. Like I said, you're playing as an Inquisitorial Acolyte. Apparently not a full Inquisitor yet. During the interview I watched, they seemed to be kind of cagey on that, but based on what I heard, you can listen to it yourself, it did seem like throughout the course of the game you would at some point become a full Inquisitor. Or maybe that's dependent on your what you do throughout the game. It's probably pretty complicated. There's probably a lot that they haven't thought out yet, because this is still very early. I don't even think this has a release date. So, yes, you're playing as an Inquisitorial Acolyte. I need to press the loop button on this. There we go. For those of you watching on YouTube, this is part of a larger stream I did. So, this isn't going to be very heavily edited. This is just going to be us going off the dome and talking about what we see. So, for better or worse, endure the chaos. So, where was I? Yeah, so you're playing as an Inquisitorial Acolyte, someone who, based on what I know about that, you'll probably be apprenticed to a more powerful Inquisitor, likely your mentor figure, maybe even this person we're seeing here. He's going to give you a huge amount of authority to investigate mysteries and solve the threats to the Imperium. Just like Rogue Trader is kind of like a grimdark, corrupted version of Star Trek, it's all about exploration and treasure hunting and discovering the secrets of the galaxy. Dark Heresy, from what I know, is a lot more about being in society and investigating it and learning the secrets beneath the surface of everyday life. It's less swashbuckling piratical adventures across the seven seas of space, and more like a noir story, more like a story about the Spanish Inquisition, perhaps, more of a story about desperate times, desperate measures, and desperate actions for the greater good. So one thing I do want to mention is the differences that we've been hearing between this game and the last game. You might not expect this, considering the fact that you're joining the Inquisition in this game, but this game is actually going to have a much more intimate, in some ways lower scale adventure, at least to start off with. It's going to be less about that very macroscopic perspective you have in Rogue Trader, where you're just jumping from planet to planet. Your character is a lord of millions upon millions of people. Yes, your character is in the Inquisition and has a huge amount of power, but you're a low ranking Inquisitor learning the ropes. So my understanding is you're gonna be less like the Rogue Trader in the last game in terms of power level, and more like Heinrichs, who was one of your companions. He's an inquisitorial acolyte. Huge amount of power. Most of his power, though, comes from who he can report to, who he can tell on, basically. So, from my perception, you're going to start this game as the lackey of somebody who has an extreme amount of power, and yourself kind of grow into that as time goes on. We should also talk about the companions that are going to be in this game. The two that stick out the most, or I guess the three that stick out the most, are the Ogryn, the big old boy that you're seeing right here. This wonderful gentleman here. We know about Ogryn. If you've seen me talk about Darktide before, I've likely talked about them before. Ogryn are kind of what their name says. They're the Warhammer version of ogres. Literally, they're slightly mutated humans who tend to be, I think they're tend to be from high gravity planets or something. I don't remember what the detail is, but they grow big, they grow them strong, they grow them fat, they grow them large, and they also don't tend to be very smart. So, also, it's not a 40k game where you get to be a very powerful person unless you get to interact with aliens. In Warhammer 40k, under normal circumstances, if a human is convorting with an alien, they'll get shot on sight. But people like Rogue Traders, and especially Inquisitors, can do whatever the hell they want, as long as it's for the greater good of the Imperium, or as long as they can convince someone that it's for the greater good of the Imperium. So, the two Xenos companions that we know we're going to have are going to be a Kroot, and the Kroot are very interesting. To sum it up, they're a warrior people. They're allied with the Tau, mostly politically and out of convenience in most cases, but they are loyal allies of the Tau, and their whole gimmick is whatever they eat, they kind of become. They take the whole "you are what you eat" thing literally. If they eat something that is intelligent, they get more intelligent. If they eat a bunch of, domesticated farm animals, they'll turn in, big, stupid, and lumbering. They are very fascinating. Their personalities very much vary, but they're most known for being mercenaries across the galaxy, and they're willing to work for mostly anyone to suit their own ends. And now over here is one thing that very much got me excited for this game. Now, if you're not a big 40k fan, or even if you are, you probably have no idea what you're looking at here, because this is some obscure shit in the lore of Warhammer 40,000. But it also just happens to be one of my favorite corners of the setting. In this game, based on what I'm seeing here, and based on what I've heard from the developers, you are going to have a space elf ninja wizard pirate in your party. And I'm completely down with that. This right here is an Aeldari Corsair. You all know about the Eldar. They're my personal favorite faction in Warhammer 40k, probably next to the Necrons. Super advanced space elves, very good in my very good in my opinion, evolution of the basic elven tropes that Tolkien came up with all those years ago. They're very good successors to those concepts in a way that I think sets them above and apart from other elves and other settings, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. I could talk about the lore of 40k all day. This guy is basically a super manic, thrill-seeking psychopath who also can bend reality with his thoughts. Yeah, I can't wait to meet this guy. Another thing that we've learned about the game is kind of what the moment-to-moment gameplay is going to be like, because this isn't quite like Rogue Trader. The premise of this game is not necessarily exploring the uncharted frontiers of the galaxy. It's about investigating the Imperium as we know it. It's going to take place in the Calixis sector, and if you know that place, you probably know it from the Rogue Trader game because they mention it a lot. Essentially, the Calixis sector is the outskirts of the Imperium. The setting of the Rogue Trader game takes place in the Coronis Expanse, which is just past the Calixis sector. So the Coronis Expanse is the uncharted frontiers, and the Calixis sector is the outskirts of the Imperium, a place where authority theoretically reigns, but there's obviously a lot of wiggle room, a lot of gray area, a lot of places that have kind of forgotten the Emperor's so-called rightful authority. So a large portion of this game is going to be on investigations, mystery solving, all of that stuff. I believe they even mentioned certain interfaces, like a certain interface in the game where you'd be putting clues together and things like that. They also mentioned that there would be degrees of success in these investigations that you're uncovering, because when you're an Inquisitor, when you strip out all the grimdark, over-the-top absurdity of it, you're basically an FBI agent. You're essentially a detective. A detective with the authority of a god, but a detective nonetheless. Now, I love investigations in video games. I love investigation quests, especially in RPGs. And the way they were describing this, the multiple degrees of success, the way that you could, maybe completely fail the case, you could solve the case in the basic way and, get the information you really need, or if you really work hard, uncover every single nook and cranny, you can discover extra things that might have greater implications for the story later down the line. It's a bit like the fantasy of L.A. Noire is the vibe I got from the way they were talking about it, though obviously I don't know how much of that is going to be true, how much of that is going to be a direct comparison. It's not their comparison, it's mine. So, what are some other things? I think that is pretty much all we know so far. They did mention that the maps are going to have better verticality for tactical gameplay and also to make the world feel a bit more natural and organic, because I did feel a bit of that flatness in the world of Rogue Trader, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that evolved. But yeah, effectively this is, I believe, all we know. But hang on, why don't we check out the website? Because I'm sure there's something up already. Dark Heresy game site. Alcat Games, here we go. Perfect. God, I just love the artwork. I love this art. It's just great. It really feels authentic. It feels the way it should be. I very much like that. Wow, of course they already got all this pre-order stuff. That does look cool, but no way is it worth it. $289! About the game. Embrace the role of an Inquisitor in a grimdark CRPG set in the Warhammer 40k universe. Investigate heresy, command a diverse warband, and shape the fate of the Imperium in a story-rich experience where every decision has weight. Be the conduit of the Emperor's will in a place where all hope was lost decades ago. Justice is ruthless, and the line between salvation and damnation is razor thin. Explore the mysteries of maddening Tyrant Star, and overcome the worst horrors thrown at you by the long night. What is Tyrant Star? That sounds familiar. Uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Your duty is to investigate heresy deep within the Calixis sector. Your craft is to expose corruption in the dark places no one else dares to look, to be the final defense of humanity in the face of annihilation. Uncover nefarious plots, interrogate suspects, and piece together conspiracies in a deep investigative system. The only question is, How far are you willing to walk the path of damnation in the name of salvation? Explore an in-depth depiction of the Inquisition as an organization and the vast force it commands, its power, bureaucracy, and inner conflicts laid bare like never before. Now, some of this stuff is interesting. There is going to be a morality system like there was in the last game. They weren't entirely clear on if it would be the same three-tiered approach, where there's kind of three morality axes you can go on. There's the iconoclast, the dogmatic, and the heretic. I actually think that was a very good way of doing things, and especially the iconoclast system is a very good way of letting you break the rules of the Imperium, and like in a positive way without necessarily being a heretic. So I'm curious if they're going to do the same thing here. I'm also curious if there's even going to be a full heretic option in this game, because they also weren't clear on that. What we do know is that the morality system of the game is going to, on the surface level, be the same as it normally is in 40k games that focus on the Inquisition. Whether it's the original Dark Heresy RPG, whether it's the 40k what am I thinking of? The 40k Diablo-like game that focuses on the Inquisition. I've played it before on stream. I think it's just called Inquisitor. Inquisitor Martyr. That's it. Yeah, in all of those games and settings and whatnot, the Inquisition's moral compass is normally on two sides. It's a spectrum from the Puritan and the Renegade. Puritan is basically the dogmatic morality style in Rogue Trader, so you're completely by the book. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a good guy or a bad guy, because there's good guy, dogmatic folk, and bad ones, as you see in Rogue Trader. But it means you're completely by the book, and you're all about faith, and you're all about following the hierarchy, the established way of things, the status quo, all of that. And the other side is Renegade. Now, again, to make a comparison that I think a lot of you guys are going to understand, it's the same thing as the Paragon Renegade system in Mass Effect. Mass Effect really did take a lot of ideas from their character class that you play as, the Spectre, from the character class you play in this game, the Inquisitor. So Renegade would be trying to do the right thing by any means necessary, no matter how extreme the cost is. You know, I'm going to work with aliens. I'm going to even, work with heretics if it means I can, fight the greater fight and save the Imperium in the long run. And as you might be able to guess, a lot of renegades end up being very powerful and impactful Inquisitors, and a lot of them end up becoming heretical. So whether you can be a heretic in this game, it's not quite clear yet, but we do know that at the very least you're going to have that dogmatic or that Puritan versus that renegade system. Companions! Okay, this is what I was really looking for. So we're going to be learning about all the companions. Perfect! I was not expecting to learn all this stuff this quickly. I can't wait. Alright. The Inquisition demands acolytes who rise above fear, doubt, and weakness. Only the strongest minds can endure this soul-crushing burden without succumbing to madness. Epione Spez, an acolyte of the Inquisition, and one of the top Medicae specialists in the Tyrantine Cabal. Cabals are, Cabals. They're Cabals when they're Drukhari. Sorry, there's a lot of terms in 40k. A cabal, C-A-B-A-L, typically refers to a group of Inquisitors, because Inquisitors tend to be very loosely organized. It's like a cell, I believe, of Inquisitors. There's also, I believe, a conclave, which is like a really large cabal, I think. I believe that's how it works. She earned her place in the ranks of the Holy Inquisition with her outstanding intellect and her drive to serve humanity flawlessly. Whether in the chirurgeon's theater or at the scene of a mystifying crime, Acolyte Spez's cold analytical thinking and vast knowledge make her indispensable. In combat, her razor-sharp scalpel claws Her razor-sharp scalpel claws allow Epione to defend herself effectively, and the unique fast-acting compounds in her combat injectors, okay, so she juices, are enough to get even severely wounded comrades back on their feet. Oh, never mind. I need to stop making negative assumptions of people. She's just helping people. She's just a doctor. She's not just injecting steroids into herself all days. Her balls getting smaller and smaller with every moment. Let's move on. Hamar Davos. Hamar Davos? Davos. An acolyte of the Inquisition, and a combat specialist in military operations in the harshest of environments. A member of the illustrious Astra Militarum, that's the Imperial Guard, regiment from the death world of Catachan. Hamar has stared into death's open maw many times over, and each time found a way to survive. He is a veteran of numerous battles, and has managed to transfer his knowledge and skills from the jungles of Catachan to the concrete jungles of the Hive cities, making him an essential asset for operations in the most dangerous corners of the Imperium. Not to interrupt myself, but I'm about to. That mention of concrete jungles of Hive cities really makes me hope that we're gonna really be getting on to like the ground floor street level of some of these Hive cities, these massive, gargantuan techno sprawls of human habitation that look like gargantuan mountains from afar and are essentially a metropolis on top of a metropolis on top of a metropolis on top of a metropolis. I really want to get into that human hive and just really experience the culture and the way of life of the average person in the Imperium. And I do think this game, because of the initially smaller scale, that initially more intimate scale, where you're going to be on that street level, investigating people, trying to solve crimes, I do think this is going to be that kind of game. When it comes to 40k games, what I really want the most is the world. I want to feel like I'm in the world, that I'm a person in this world, and that this vast, impossibly scaled society of trillions upon trillions of people is all around me. So that's what I'm looking forward to with that. In battle, Acolyte Davos relies on high-speed weapons capable of turning the battlefield into a deadly trap, as well as his formidable Catachan knife. That's a small-ass Catachan knife. They're normally like the size... They're normally basically swords. I suppose they're trying to be a bit more grounded in this portrayal. Anyway, if you don't know, the Catachan are a kind of somewhere between an ethnic group and like a different subspecies of human that grew up on a very specific death world where effectively they had to do some very short-term, quick, natural selection to even survive on that planet at all. Everything wants to kill you. It's super Australia mixed with Vietnam. That's what Catachan is. And the people who survive there end up being some of the most physically powerful and cunning warriors other than Space Marines. Obviously not on a Space Marine level in terms of raw power, but, you know, he is somewhere on that tier list. These guys are no joke. Conscript 0-118-B, otherwise known as COG. In Ogren, once assigned to the 27th Centillion Fusiliers, a regiment of the Astra Militarum. Nicknamed COG for convenience, he is a member of a mutated human subspecies characterized by its immense stature, strength, and endurance, and lack of intelligence. Like any Ogren, COG is incredibly fierce and stoic, and his understanding of orders has been enhanced with a special cranial implant. COG is doggedly loyal to the Imperial Creed and his military leaders, and he sows terror on the battlefield. He cannot be stopped by obstacles or injury, and the strike weapons in his hands can break through any armor. I'm very curious about this. Why is his name a serial number? You know, the Imperium does not treat mutants very well. I wonder if he was just kind of like born into the indentured servitude of the imperial bureaucracy and just thrown into the army when he was old enough to fight. I am curious about that cranial implant. Like, what exactly does it do? That seems like something that's going to be an element of his character, just based on the way that they phrased that. It kind of makes me think that we're going to be dealing with some level of subtle mind control going on with the character that either our player character can exploit or maybe help him with. Who knows? And now we get to the aliens. Ra'akti. A Xenos from the Kroot race, humanoid predators capable of evolving by consuming the genetic material of other species. Ra'akti was once a tracker in her tribe. A female Kroot? Sick! Oh, cool, and they had the balls not to give her tits. I appreciate it. Not every... I'm still mad at what Bethesda did with Argonians, and I know the Gooners in the audience are going to be upset with me for that, but not every female species needs to follow the sexual dimorphism of humanity. That gets boring. But anyway, let's see. One of her Warshaper's closest followers... Wait, where did we left off? Ra'akti was once a tracker in her tribe, one of her Warshaper's closest followers, possessing the ability to sense others' emotions and memories through the eating of flesh. However, disobeying the Shaper's laws, almost at Jaws, has turned Ra'akti into an outcast forced to find her way separate from her tribe. And inedible. I love that as the name. In battle, the Xenos relies on her trusty rifle and her Petra familiar, the last reminder of her last home. This is interesting. So she's basically a Kroot version of an Eldar outcast. That's fascinating. I like how they're called inedibles. It really ties into everything about their psyche and their way of doing things, because they eat things to become that thing. So, of course they do cannibalism, and I wouldn't be surprised if the idea is when you die, you get eaten by the rest of the tribe. And then the tribe gains your power and your knowledge and all of that stuff. So that's interesting. If you're someone that's not worth eating when your time has come, they send you out of the tribe, presumably to, like, right your life, maybe, eat some better things that will make you a better person, and then eventually let you back in. That's what I assume the deal is. Inedible. I love that. And now, my favorite character I already know. Larthir Canereth. An Aeldari Corsair, a member of the ancient Xenos race and endowed with psychic powers. After entering into a precarious alliance with a radical Inquisitor, Larthir set foot on one of humanity's hive worlds, risking his life for his own mysterious ends. He is a wayseeker, capable of plotting routes for Corsair vessels through the dimension known as the Webway. However, this is not the extent of his mystical gifts. The awesome powers under the command of this Xenos' detached mind surpass the abilities of most human psychers, and should he find himself in combat, Larthir places no restraints on his deadly talent. So, yeah. Eldar are all insane, just by default, because, to put it simply, they were designed to be insane. They were designed to be emotionally unstable. Let me rephrase that. Let me re-say that in a way that doesn't make me sound stupid. They were designed to be emotionally unstable psychic bioweapons that would scour entire star systems, throw suns at things, create literally infinite armies and materials from nothing with their mind. If you're familiar with the Starforge from Star Wars, the Knights of the Old Republic series, that factory that can create stuff from nothing and just create weapons of war, weapons of war, weapons of war. There was a time when every Eldar could do that without the need for a giant space station. Just like a relatively much smaller machine that could just create anything from thought. That's how powerful the Eldar were designed to be. But psychic power also leads to your soul burning brightly. It leads to the things that are in the warp wanting to eat you because they want to eat that psychic energy. And it also leads to your own mind being incredibly unstable because you feel every emotion, every touch, every relationship, every slight, every pleasure, every pain. You feel that exponentially more than any human would. If you put a human brain, if you put an Eldar brain into a human body, it would probably immediately seize up, go into shock, and, like, die from just feeling the air blow across his face. So, because of that, all Eldar are fucking crazy. And they try to contain the crazy in different ways. The Asuryani focus on one brand of crazy at a time. So they'll really obsess over being the best warrior ever, or, the best prostitute ever, the best... And I'm not kidding. They're not prudes. They just don't do things in excess. They focus on one obsession at a time. And they become very powerful in one thing, and their minds don't wander into the bad things that lead to them murder fucking the entire galaxy and then giving birth to a god of sex, pleasure, and pure excess, and then essentially having their powers gimped for the rest of reality because they can't fully access them without said murder fuck god eating their souls. All that is to say that, like I said, Eldar have different ways of containing the crazy. The way that Corsairs do it is their way of containing the crazy is intentionally not containing it, is going as all out as possible, being as thrill-seeking, as crazy, as risk-taking, just completely indulging in the part of the Eldar mind that wants to do crazy, sick, Devil May Cry style shit, and just take whatever they want, do whatever the hell they want, and not let anybody tell them no because they're a god. That's what Eldar Corsairs are. They're not quite as evil as the Drukhari, the Dark Eldar, because they don't want to be enslaved to the thirst that the Dark Eldar have. Dark Eldar are essentially torture vampires. The way that they stave off the insanity of their mind and the consumption by the god they created at the apex of their civilization is by inflicting pain and torment and extreme emotions on other beings to kind of regenerate their souls and keep them from getting eaten by Slaanesh. Corsairs don't like that. They don't like to be... They don't want to have a permanent addiction for eternity. They want to do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, and fuck everybody who tells them anything else. So they're kind of, they're definitely on the evil side of the spectrum, but not full-on Cenobite, like Dark Eldar. And, yeah, as you can see, I could talk about them for quite some time. Wayseekers specifically are basically the wizards, the warlocks of the Corsairs. They travel in big fleets of these gigantic ships that swim through space like they're big old dolphins or whatever. And they travel back and forth between real space and this kind of halfway dimension called the Webway, which is basically this series of tunnels through the warp that the Eldar use to get from one place to another in rapid time. But it's also an entire dimension, seemingly infinite, or just as large as the galaxy, filled with the ancient remnants of the Eldar civilization. Because a lot of them used to live in there, and a lot of them still do. So a Wayseeker's job is to... they're essentially the navigators of the fleets. They're able to, use all that weird sacred geometry and timey-wimey bullshit to navigate the Webway and get the fleet where they need to get so they can plunder all the stuff. And an important thing about Eldar Corsairs is that they're pirates completely for fun. None of it's necessary. Eldar live in a post-scarcity society. they don't need material things. They can psychic up anything they want if they, just go back to the craft world and play by the rules and, agree not to be a crazy pirate anymore. But they don't want that life. They want a life away from all that stuff. They want to work for what they consume on a regular basis. And since Eldar are just naturally violent, remember, they were designed to be psychic superweapons. Most of the time what an Eldar does when they want to strike out on their own and, be self-reliant is kill a lot of people. Kill a lot of people and take whatever they have. So yes, I'm very much interested to learn all about Laerthir Caraneth. Caraneth. Why do you have to make it so complicated? But anyway, I think that about wraps it up. Yeah, I was not expecting all this character information to be up already. I am very excited about this game. Another thing I wanted to mention is, and I know I said that's pretty much it, but I did want to mention that the game looks so much better than Rogue Trader. Rogue Trader, the art style is perfect, but it's not executed well enough, in my opinion. It's just a lot of the character models look way too plastic, not very good. The animations are very stiff, and based on the very little we've seen, all that stuff seems to be a lot better. Look at the lighting here, man. Look at that. Rogue Trader don't look like that at all. This is going to be a big upgrade if the game looks like this. One thing that's amazing about Rogue Trader is just how well it nails the aesthetic of 40K. And not just the human stuff, not just the grimy, greasy, grimdark, techno-hell in all directions. I'm talking about, like, the Eldar stuff. We actually got to see the webway in Rogue Trader, and I never thought we were going to see that, a 3D depiction of the webway ever. It was insane the way they just authentically represented all the different sides of the 40K universe. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with the Kroot. I really hope the Tau get involved in some way. I really want to see how players are going to react in the role of an Inquisitor to the Tau, to Tau infiltration of, Imperial life, that kind of Tau propaganda. We'll get into the Tau another day, but they're a very interesting faction to come up against as an Inquisitor. I will say that. And I do hope that we see a lot more about Kroot culture, and I do hope that the Tau show up as well. Because I am a real big fan of the aliens in Warhammer 40K. I know a lot of people are just all about Space Marines, Space Marines, Space Marines, maybe an Orc here or there, maybe a Tyranid to fight, but nah, I like the alien civilizations of Warhammer 40K, and that includes Orcs, by the way, and even Tyranids. I love them all. But yeah, there's certain factions that definitely don't get as much story content, and both of these games have been really doing it. Rogue Trader with the Eldar and the Necron, this game with the Kroot, maybe the Tau. I don't want to blow my load on that before it happens. And we're also going to have my favorite type of Space Elf. Are you kidding me? So yeah, I am very much looking forward to this game. And yeah, that's about it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you're watching this live, thank you for watching this with me. If you're watching this on YouTube, then be sure to hit that like button. I'm sure I'll edit this out at least a little bit. I'm definitely not used to doing a video completely on the first take. It's been a while since I've done that. But anyway, yeah. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments, and definitely follow me on Twitch at PsychoTripStreams. And also, if you're following me on the main channel, thank you for following me on the main channel. And also, check out my second channel. It's called PsychoTripStreams, just like my Twitch channel. That's where we're going to be putting all the VODs for all of my Let's Plays on YouTube. So yeah, keep all that in mind. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. I thought it wasn't going to be as bad as I remembered it. I thought, you're not going full dark side on this character like you did the first time you did the Inquisitor questline trip. Surely Ashara's inability to acknowledge that you're dark side, that you're a villain character, and that she's also doing villainous things all the time, surely that's not going to be as grating. Because you're not, pure dark side this time. No. It's already too much for me to deal with. I can't with her, guys. I can't with her.
Don't make me go against my teachings.
Oh!
Sure you'll be alright?
Oh, shut up. No, I won't be alright, Ashara. I won't be alright. You're the worst fantasy character named Ashara that I've ever encountered in fiction. I wish I could take you easy, Ashara. I wish there was anything about you that I could take easy. You clownfish bitch. Okay, Trip. You know that was too far. That was too heavy, too hard, too early. The viewer doesn't understand yet. I think she might be the only thing I don't like about this game. Aside from the other only thing, which